Echoes of the virtual shadows. In the dead of night, the glow of Mark's computer screen cast eerie shadows across his small apartment. The soft hum of the machine filled the room, punctuated only by the occasional click of his mouse. Alone in the late hours of the night, Mark found solace in the virtual world that stretched out before him. Social media platforms, forums, and chat rooms became his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the dullness of his everyday life. But little did he know, within the vast expanse of cyberspace, a sinister presence lurked, waiting to ensnare him in its web. It began innocently enough. A friend request from a name he didn't recognize, accompanied by a profile picture shrouded in darkness. The name, Echo, whispered through the digital ether, beckoning him to accept. Intrigued, Mark hesitated only briefly before clicking the Accept button, unaware of the Pandora's box he had just opened. At first, Echo's messages were innocuous, a simple greeting, a few casual questions about Mark's interests and hobbies. But as the days passed, the tone of the messages grew increasingly unsettling. Echo seemed to know things about Mark that he had never shared online, personal details, private thoughts, secrets he had buried deep within the recesses of his mind. It was as if Echo could see into his soul, peering through the screen with eyes that were not his own. A sense of unease settled over Mark as he scrolled through the endless stream of messages, each one more invasive than the last. He tried to ignore the creeping feeling of dread that gnawed at his insides, but it was no use. Echo had burrowed its way into his consciousness, a parasite feeding off his fears and insecurities. As the weeks passed, Mark's paranoia reached fever pitch. He found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, jumping at the slightest sound, convinced that Echo was watching him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Desperate for answers, Mark began to scour the internet for any information he could find about Echo. But the more he searched, the deeper the rabbit hole seemed to go, leading him further into the murky depths of the web. Then, one fateful night, Mark received a message from Echo that sent chills down his spine. It contained a video attachment, labeled simply, "Watch me." With trembling hands, Mark clicked play, his heart pounding in his chest as the screen flickered to life. What he saw next would haunt him for the rest of his days. A live feed of his own apartment, streamed from hidden cameras placed throughout the room. Every corner, every shadow was illuminated, casting a surreal glow over the familiar surroundings. And there, in the center of it all, was Mark himself, his face twisted in terror as he realized the true extent of Echo's obsession. As he watched in horror, Echo's messages flashed across the screen, taunting him with their mocking tone. It was as if Echo were reveling in his fear, savoring every moment of his torment. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the video cut out, leaving Mark alone in the darkness once more. But Echo was not finished with him yet. In the days that followed, Mark's life descended into chaos. He became a shell of his former self, haunted by the specter of Echo's presence wherever he went. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by restless nights filled with nightmares and paranoia. Friends and family grew concerned as Mark withdrew further into himself, unable to escape the grip of Echo's influence. They urged him to seek help, to reach out to the authorities, but Mark knew deep down that it was futile. For in the twisted labyrinth of the internet, where anonymity reigns supreme, there are no rules, no boundaries, no escape from the horrors that lurk in the shadows. And so, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Mark remained trapped in a never-ending nightmare, tormented by the echoes of a presence he could never truly escape. For in the end, the true horror of the digital age lies not in the technology itself, but in the darkness that resides within us all.